One of the biggest mistakes people make in budgeting is to not have a budget. In this video, I'm going to give you 6 tips for setting up, using, and succeeding with your budget. And stick around to the very end for a bonus tip that you do not want to miss. Welcome, I'm Amy, and here at Frugal Over 50, I give you tips and tools for frugal living, all personally tested by me. Let's get right to these 6 tips for setting up your budget. Number 1, identify your expenses. This is where you need something to write with and something to write on, or something to take notes with and something to take notes on. You're going to identify your expenses in 3 broad categories. One is now. What do you have to pay today, this next week, over the course of the next month? What are your now expenses? Second, you're going to identify what expenses do you have later, as in next month, next quarter, over the course of the next year. And then you're going to identify long-term expenses. What's coming up? Now, this is as detailed as you want to make it at this point, and it's as detailed as you can get. Write down from the top of your head, what do you know is coming up soon? What do you know is coming up a little bit later? And what do you know is coming up sort of long-term, but we're not thinking terribly long-term right now. This is like, when do you need to go to the grocery store again? When do you need to pay your insurance bill again? When is your mortgage due? These are the kinds of things that you want to write down. Write down with as much detail as possible and expect that this process will not be a one and done experience, but that you might do something right now, even while you're watching this video. You can pause it and you can write something down and then come back an hour later and go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And then come back an hour later and oh yeah, I forgot about that. Keep your note-taking app or your piece of paper and pencil handy so that throughout the day today, as you think of more things, you can just add them. You're not trying to sort them or categorize them too much right now, just now, later, and long term. As you're doing this, you may also want to be researching budgeting plans, and I happen to love You Need a Budget. I talk about it all the time. I have a playlist, which I'll link above. I always leave information in the description below about You Need a Budget. Some people also love Every Dollar. These are the 2 apps that we talk about the most here on the channel. And it's good to research these things, even if you already have a budget plan. Look at something new. But for now, your main purpose is the pencil and paper or the phone with the Notes app, writing down now expenses, later expenses, and long-term expenses. Now that you have identified your expenses, or you are in the process of identifying your expenses, you get to move on to tip number 2, which is to plan. Plan involves mindset as well as strategy. Let me give you the mindset. The mindset is give every dollar a job. And I referred to You Need a Budget above. That phrase comes directly from You Need a Budget. Give every dollar a job. Some people also refer to this as a zero-based budget. However you think about it, you want to make sure that you treat your money as your employees. I'm in the United States, so I talk about dollars, and I think of my dollars as my employees. You may be in a different part of the world with a different currency, but the same thing applies. Your money works for you, and the mindset is to give every dollar a job to do so that it doesn't go run out and do crazy stuff that you didn't ask it to do and you wish it hadn't done once it's done. If you've been struggling with budgeting, this is usually one of the places where people really struggle. How do I give my dollars a job? Here's how. You identify the expenses that you have coming up. You understand how much money you have in your accounts right now, and that's probably a little bit easier to do than identifying all of your expenses that are coming up. Then you give every dollar a job based on what expenses do you need to spend before you get paid again. Write those down. You could make a little asterisk on your Notes app or on your piece of paper. This has to be paid before I get paid again. This has to be paid before I get paid again. This bill is coming due next week and I don't get paid till the week after. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. This is how much I have. These are the expenses I have. Let me give you an example. I get paid twice a month. I go to the grocery store once a week. So between one paycheck and the next, which is usually about 2 weeks between paychecks, I usually go to the store twice. I'll have a major shopping trip for the 2-week period, and then I'll have a pickup shopping trip somewhere in there. I have a certain amount of money that I allot myself for groceries in that 2 or 2.5 week period. I can't go over it. I know that in that time, I'm going to make 2 trips and I have a list of things that I need to get at the store. So before I get to the store, I'm not just planning my list of items that I'm going to buy, as I've talked about in other videos. I am also planning based on exactly what I have in my account that I've given to myself, and it has to last until the next paycheck. If I spend it all in the first day of shopping, that's it. I don't get to get any more until the next paycheck. Now, food tends to be one of those examples where it can be a little bit variable. You may have others like your mortgage that's just due the same time every single month. So you have to plan for it. When is it due? When do you get paid? Make those two things connect. Another thing I'd love to see connect right here on this channel is you and me. I'd love to have you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that notification bell so you'll get notified first of new videos. Give this video a like, share it with 7 or 20 of your closest friends. And if you'd like to support the growth of the channel, click the link down below on Buy Me a Coffee. All the proceeds go to making the channel better. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get right back to budgeting. Tip number 3, track. This is another place where people get very stuck. They go back and track a month later, 6 months later. I spent this, I spent that. Then you're digging receipts out of shoeboxes. No, 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 my friends. This is not how we budget. Track it as it happens. You don't go back later. And if you do go back later, it's just to catch up because you missed a couple of days. It's not like the last 6 months of agony. Tracking is that you have planned how to give your dollars a job, and as soon as those dollars go and do the job that you gave them, you are evaluating them. You're giving them a performance review on the spot. It's not an annual performance review, it's an every single dollar performance review. This mindset shift is so crucial because many of us come to budgeting after years of going, when it comes to our money. We're scared of it. We don't understand it. We think it's evil. We think something's wrong with us. There's so much heaviness associated with money for so many of us. And just think of it as, what would you tell your employees to do for you? Your money is your employees. Give them a job and then follow up and see how they did. That's all tracking is. You are the boss of your money. Make sure that you pay attention to your employees and follow up with them to make sure that they did what you told them. Track your expenses. Next tip, refine. Refining involves sitting down and reviewing. How did it go? Did I correctly identify all of my bills? Did I accurately plan what I needed to spend? Did I track or did I just go, I hope I spent it right? Identify where your particular lags and weaknesses were. Also identify your strengths. For instance, I started budgeting about 5 years ago, and it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I really got super serious about it. But over that 3-year process of growth, I was constantly refining. And so when that 2 years ago period came and I decided now is the time, I could really look at all of my expenses that I'd had over the last 3 years, all of my tracking skills, all of my planning skills, and I could decide where were my strengths and weaknesses. One of the things, I talked about food earlier, this is a big one for me. I had identified that I needed a huge sum of money for food every single month, and I decided I could probably shrink that. And over the last couple of years, I've been shrinking it and eating ever more healthfully, I have to say. Because when you focus, you really identify what's important to you. So keep refining. Refine every paycheck, refine every week, refine every month, refine every year. Make that part of the process as often as needed. Tip number 5, set goals. Setting goals takes everything that you've done so far and just supercharges it. Let's say that you have a big goal in your head. You know what year you want to retire, you know when you want to have your house paid off, you know when you want to sell everything and travel. These are big sort of amorphous goals, and I'm asking you to set those goals as concrete, money-based goals. You have to sort of work forwards and backwards between now and your goal and constantly be thinking about how am I going to adjust my expenses today so that goal that is 10 years down the road can be actually possible. How am I going to adjust my savings? Let's say that you have a goal to establish an emergency fund because like many of us, you don't have one or you have used it up and you need to reestablish it. What are you going to do today to contribute to having an emergency fund saved up by another 6 months from now? So everything that you do is planning for your own goals. So far, the planning that I've asked you to do is about things that just come with being an adult in life, the expenses that you have to take. It takes money to live the dream. If your dream is to sail off into the sunset on a boat, then you have a financial goal there, which is what year do I want to have the money saved up for the boat, and how much money will I need to run the boat annually? Whatever your dream is, it has some concrete aspects to it. And I like this way of thinking about our goals, connecting them with our life dreams and our larger life plans. Because if we can think about them in a concrete way, they become more accessible to us. I think sometimes we have the idea that if we connect our dreams to our money, that we will feel heartbroken and we will feel immediately like we're going to fail. And I'm asking us to switch that around and say that I can only feel like I'm going to succeed at my dreams, my long-term goals, my huge plans, if I have a money plan for how to get there. And that money plan starts with how I spend money at the grocery store today, and how I pay this bill, and how I pay that bill, and how I track, and how I refine, how I review. Everything can lead to those big goals that you have. What's your big goal? What do you want to do? What's your big plan for your life? Tell me down below in the comments. If you need some specific help and inspiration and strategies that will help you get on your way to these bigger, larger goals, go and check out my video on 10 frugal living habits that changed my life. These were the things that really gave me success as I started to commit to this process of budgeting. And from a perspective of somebody who just was terrified of the whole thing, I have to say, if I can do this process, so can you. And this leads us straight to tip number 6, which is repeat. Consistency is key. There's no such thing as failure, there's only learning. There's no such thing as success and therefore I'm done. It's just a constant process. Do the same thing again tomorrow, and again tomorrow, and again tomorrow. Identify your expenses. Plan what you need to do with your employees, your dollars. Track as you spend. Refine that whole thing as you go. Set your big life goals. And then do it all again. It is not a sprint. It is a marathon. It's a big long walk. It's a lifelong journey. The bonus tip today comes straight from you folks. I have a question that has come from the community. How do you handle expenditures? This is the planning and the tracking portion of your budget. At stores like Target. If you're in the United States, you know Target. If you're in another part of the world, think of that store you go to where you can buy just about everything. You could get your groceries, your clothes, your laundry detergent, just about everything. Target in the United States is that store. And you have a category for clothes. You have a category for food. You have a category for laundry detergent. Well, you're going to buy that all at once. How do you divide from one store how you're going to spend your money? Some people really, really love to carry their money to the store itself in envelopes, cash inside an envelope within each category. So when you have planned how you're going to spend your money, you have divided it physically into the categories that you're going to spend in. This is such an empowering way to do it, but it's really hard at a place like Target. So there are 2 tips that I have for you about this. One is that some folks actually swear by having a separate envelope that they have just for Target. And they keep track of all of their Target expenses. They identify how much they're likely to spend in any given pay period, and they just put that amount, and that's just their Target category. Other people like me use a virtual cash envelope system. So if I go to Target, for instance, and I have a category for food and another category for household items, I spend half of my money on food and half of my money on household items. But because I have the virtual cash envelope system in You Need a Budget, then I can just look at my receipt afterwards and divide it. So I have food money in my food category and my household money in my household category, even though I spent them both at Target. Question of the day: what's your favorite way to budget, and what's your biggest budget struggle? I am so glad that you are here. You are not alone. Wherever you are on your frugal living journey and on your budgeting journey, take the next step. You can do it. And I can't wait to see you again soon. Bye-bye.